You want to put in the chat name and where you're coming from in the state. Okay. Good to see everybody. All right, we got a good. I'm seeing Middle, East, and West Tennessee in here. Good to see everyone. See everyone. All right. Well, we still have folks that are going to be. Let's see. We got folks rolling in. Make sure we're letting everybody in. As you come in, for newcomers, if you have access to the chat, go ahead and put your name and what county you're coming in from. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started as people continue to roll in. My name's Austin Sauerbrei. I am the Executive Director of Statewide Organizing for Community Empowerment. We're a 53-year-old member-run organization. Started in East Tennessee, but we have chapters mostly in East and West Tennessee, rural and suburban counties throughout the state. And we are so excited to be working with our members and folks from the Sierra Club and Rutherford Ford and the Tennessee Environmental Council and others to host this informational call on and call to action on the Jackson Law. And so we're going to be hearing from an amazing panel of speakers, both residents, impacted residents who live near landfill sites across the state, and several experts as well. And then we're going to end the call with the next steps of how do we make sure that we can keep decision making around landfills within our local communities and protect the Jackson Law. And so for those that are coming in that know what the Jackson Law is, this is a time to dig a little bit deeper and learn how we can protect it. For folks that are coming in that don't know what the Jackson Law is, this is a great space to learn about what it is, why it matters, and why we need to protect it. So just a few housekeeping items as you're coming in. If you're a participant, please stay on mute. We are going to have a question and answer time, and I'll let y'all know when that is. That we'll go through and answer some questions. If you have any questions while people are sharing, please put them in the chat. And then we'll go back through and try to pull some of those questions during our Q&A time. And the other thing to note, this meeting is being recorded. So the faces on the screen, we just have our speakers spotlighted. So your face is not going to be blown up on the screen, but we are recording. We know there's quite a few folks who couldn't attend tonight that wanted this information. So we're going to be sharing that out. So let me see if there's anything else that I needed to do in the intro. I don't think so. I think without any further ado, I'm going to toss it over to my friend Shelby White to give us an introduction and talk a little bit about why we're here.
Austin, thank you so much for helping pull all this together. I see so many familiar faces, and it's really, really cool to see folks across the state taking interest in this issue. We all kind of come to this in different ways. I am well, my name is Shelby White, and my background is in communications, digital advertising, and advocacy. And I've worked on a number of bipartisan conservation campaigns over the years with my friends at SOCM. We've worked to protect mountain peaks across eastern Tennessee. We've stopped major clear cuts from happening, working with members of both parties. And last year, I actually came to learn about a bill called the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act, which focuses on creating a funding mechanism to help increase statewide recycling. It would create thousands of jobs, generate hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure investment, and also help to eliminate about 100 million tons of packaging waste that goes into our landfills each year. And as we started into that, we made a film, and actually we made a film called Waste to Wages. A number of you all have maybe seen it. It was actually selected into the Nashville Film Festival last month. I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but it's really helped raise awareness around the market forces that exist around these materials that are filling up our landfills. And as part of that process, we learned about all of these issues with landfills going on across the state. Whether you're in Rutherford County or Oneida or Murray County, you'll hear from folks who are living in these communities there who are dealing with either expanding landfills or proposed landfills. And the reason why we're here tonight is because of a law that was passed back in the 80s called the Jackson Law, which basically gives local communities the authority to make their own decisions about their solid waste future. And so I'm here tonight to, one, help introduce one of the foremost experts on the Jackson Law, Mr. Mac Nolan, who is currently the Williamson County Solid Waste Director. He was the former director of or the former solid waste director for Rutherford County, and was around during the time when the Jackson Law was passed, and has worked around the Middle Point landfill, which is the largest landfill in Tennessee. And Mac has quite an experience with that, and can talk about the reason why the Jackson Law is so important at the local level, and why these decisions need to be made there. So Mac, if you don't mind me introducing you, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much, Shelby. The Jackson Law was done by Doug Jackson, and he was the state representative for Dixon and Hickman counties, which at that time in the late 80s were really small rural counties, as much of Tennessee was. Most of the counties did not have any zoning. They just went by state zoning. So he pushed really hard and got it enacted so each county had the Jackson Law in place instead of the zoning that they did not have. And you had to choose to adopt it. Not much more than half of the 95 counties have adopted the law. Several cities have adopted it as well. But every county needs to have it on the books. They may want a landfill. The Jackson Law doesn't necessarily stop a landfill. It just has the legislative body gets to vote on it. That's the main thing.
And Mac, just real quick, we do have a slide sort of showing where the Jackson Law has passed and where it has not. If I bring that up on the screen, could you chat a little bit about that?
Sure.
Let me see if I can get this to work. All right, is that showing up for folks?
So you see the blue counties that have adopted the Jackson Law, and then you have some counties in between. Some of them is the lack of knowledge of it. When I went to Williamson County, they were not aware. So we got that adopted in 2022. And then some other regulations that help. But look at the west side of the state. That's a big area there. And there are some landfills in that area. But those counties, if another landfill wanted to start, they may not be able to stop it.
Awesome. And Mac, before we move on to our resident panel, could you just share just a little bit about specifically what the Jackson Law does, like what it means for a municipality or a county when a landfill development is being proposed, like get into the nitty gritty of like, what does it actually let our communities do?
If you have a group of investors that have the money and they have the right site location, and it needs to have some good deep soil because landfill has to have dirt to operate, they have to go for a permit through TDEC. And when they do the permit, it's a pretty lengthy process. They have to have an engineered firm to design the landfill. And when it's presented, the landfill will be this wide, this tall, that long, and hold X amount of airspace. So landfills literally sell airspace. So compaction is the key to them being profitable. But if you're not a county that does not have the Jackson Law and you don't have any other special zoning regulations, then it goes to TDEC. TDEC can approve it if everything is good, they can approve it, and the county or the local government has zero say. With the Jackson Law, what would happen is that permit would go to TDEC. TDEC would look on the books and see, oh, Rutherford County has a Jackson Law, send it to the Solid Waste Board. That's where it goes next. Solid Waste Board has to have a hearing on it, and they vote on it, and then it also has an opportunity to go before the county commission.
So is it accurate to say, just to kind of reiterate this, that this regarding landfills and solid waste development, it really is the only tool that Tennessee communities have to have really any sort of say in whether a landfill development occurs in their community?
If they don't have zoning regulations that regulate what can be built where, if it's just all agricultural and residential, then they can build a landfill. So you have to have regulations to where it has to be zoned properly. And if you don't have it, then they don't have to worry about the zoning. Now you have to be careful because the zoning usually is industrial. So, you could have a group come in, oh, we're going to build a big warehousing facility to get all the permits, and then decide to build a landfill. So there's some stop gaps in there to help stop that as well. But, if you were dealing with bad actors, they're going to find ways around it. But the Jackson Law can help stop that.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mac. And we're going to circle back around. So we're going to talk to a few of our other panelists and hear from them. And then we're going to circle back for some Q&A. So again, if folks have questions and want to get into more nitty gritty, please put those in the chat and we'll do our best to get to those. So now we sort of have a little bit of a framing of what the Jackson Law is, why it matters. One more thing before we move on. Could someone, either Mac or Shelby, just speak briefly to why we feel it may be under threat of potentially losing the Jackson Law and what that looks like?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about it. So over the past year, as we were talking about the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act at the legislature, we heard of efforts by special interest groups, lobbyists, big waste industry on circumventing local authority by overturning or amending the Jackson Law. So as part of the process on that, we've there's been a number of public forums where members of the industry or representatives of the industry have publicly discussed potential changes to it, and they've positioned local authority almost as a hindrance or what's blocking these landfill decisions. And recently, a number of folks on this call are aware that a solid waste task force was created in the legislature that was appointed by members of the legislature that are discussing a number of these issues. And recently on a discussion that they had about 2 weeks ago, I think on September 30th, was the first meeting of that committee. And you can go and listen to the comments that are made. And there's definitely a conversation about how local authority is preventing some of these landfills or large regional landfills for being developed. So, and I believe there's others on this call who can also talk about hearing those same types of conversations at conferences and things that have taken place over the summer.
Awesome. Thanks for
And
that.
if you look at the way that state law is written, counties are responsible for the residential solid waste generated within that county unless a city wants to take on that chore. Residential waste. It's not responsible for commercial waste.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for that context setting. So again, we have counties that it's a state law that is passed. There are counties that can choose to adopt it, or municipalities. Many have not. The law does not apply to your county or municipality unless your county or municipality passes a law to adopt it. So even though it's state law, the local governing body has to adopt it. So with that, I want to talk a little bit with some local residents who live near some of these landfills to share a little bit about their own experience and why the Jackson Law matters in our local community. So first, I want to toss it over to our Rutherford County SACA member, Candida Lane, to share a little bit about her experience.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Candida Lane, and I'm here today because I care deeply about my community and the future of Rutherford County. I got involved in the fight against Middle Point 6 years ago with SOCM because I'm tired of seeing our community bear the burden of everyone else's trash, and we deserve better. Every single day, I'm reminded of the landfill's impact. Even today, this morning, I woke up, walked out my door, and smelled the landfill. And I went to the website and reported it. So when I walk down my street, when I'm in my yard gardening, when I'm running errands or grabbing dinner from my family, I can smell the dump. It is a constant reminder that our community has been treated like a dumping ground for far too long. Middle Point has been a bad neighbor for years. They've had numerous violations, some as recent as of last week. And our water reports are showing high levels of PFAS contamination, even higher that's been reported in parts of China. That's what's flowing into our watershed. That's what our families are being exposed to. Now we're hearing the Jackson Law, the very law that gives local communities like ours a voice in whether new landfills can be built or expanded, might be taken away from us. That power would go back to the state. But the same state agencies, like TDEC, have failed to hold Middle Point accountable for years. So why should we trust them to protect us now? We take on trash from nearly 30 counties across Tennessee and from 6 different states. Our health and our environment are at risk. We are tired of the smell. We're tired of the lack of accountability. We are tired of the low property values. We are the largest growing county in Tennessee. We are tired of being dumped on. We are tired of being landfill detectives. What we want to achieve together is better waste management solutions, such as EPR. We want accountability. We want clean water. We want to protect our homes, our families, and our future. The Jackson Law is one of the few tools we have to make sure our voices matter. Taking it away silences the people who live with the consequences every day. We're not asking for anything unreasonable. We're asking for fairness, for responsibility, and for the right to decide what happens in our backyard. Thank you.
Thanks, Candida. And appreciate lifting up both the landfill, just expansion of living near the landfill, and also the impact that it has on the waterways and the other the violations that are not being taken into account. I want to toss it over to Gail Moore from Murray County. Gail, you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit from your experience? Oh, Gail, you're on mute. It's all good.
Hello, I'm Gail Moore from Murray County, as was stated, and we have been fighting landfills for quite some time. We have this property which was a Monsanto plant, and now it is just a terrible 1,300 acres, and so that seems to be just what different companies want for a landfill. And it happens to be a Superfund site, and it happens to be right on the Duck River. So for the past 20 years, 2 different businesses have come to us, and the first time was in 2013, and there was enough public sentiment that they went away. But then in 2023, Louisiana-based company Trinity Business Group came in and has sort of been hinted these organizations are sneaky. So they found a way to buy this land, and the way that we heard that this was even a possibility was when they were delivering tire incinerators to the property, and they were so huge that they had to hire a lift to come get them. That's when citizens said, like, what's going on out there? And so then we found out that they were planning a 1,300-acre waste complex, and it would be 1,000 feet from the Duck River, which I'm sure y'all are aware is our water supply. And as I said earlier, it happens to be a Superfund site. So the only protection we really had to fight it is the Jackson Law. And we are using that. They found a little loophole, and we are going to court about it. But the Jackson Law is what is going to save us, we hope. Because, as was mentioned, lobbyists and TDEC are not always going to come to your rescue. And I talked to our county mayor today, and she said, basically, the Jackson Law is the only protection that we have as a county to fight these things. And with current landfill needs, we know they're going to be looking around, and we need to have every available arrow in our quiver. So, and this company Trinity that's come to us, they've gone to different states. I'm sure they're also looking around in Tennessee. They went to another site in Hickman County, I believe. And fortunately, the land they were going to buy, the owner decided not to sell it to them. But, I just don't know any reason any county would not want to have the Jackson Law to empower themselves. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gail. And now I want to turn it over to Jennifer Shockley from Scott County.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Shockley. I'm from Scott County. So for over 25 years, Scott County has been the host for a regional landfill. Our community knows firsthand what that is. We live with a daily convoy of semi-trucks crowding our roads, the overwhelming stench that seeps into the nearby homes and churches and apartments. It's not something that people think about, but it happens in your community, and you have to deal with the consequences. And you would think that one regional landfill, especially the size of this one that has enough capacity for a human lifetime, would be enough. But it's not, apparently, because in our county, proposing a second landfill built right next to the one that we already have. And we just think that's enough. One is enough. We definitely don't need two. And if your county is where unincorporated areas do not have zoning power, then you're likely to face a landfill being built without any consultation with your county government. You won't have a say in whether that gets built there, because TDEC says that local governments determine local land use. So we just believe that the best power that anyone has to protect their county and their community, if you really want to determine how your land is used, is by adopting Jackson's Law in your county and even in all of your cities. That way everyone has a choice, and you're not faced with not only one landfill, but two, like we are. So just ask yourself, how many landfills do you want in your county? And if you don't have Jackson Law, then you may not even have a say in that.
Thanks so much, Jennifer and Gail and Candida, for sharing. And we'll loop back to have some time for questions and answers too. So please go ahead and put those in the chat. So after hearing from residents about the impact of what does it mean to live near these landfills as a local resident who wants to have some sort of say in how these landfills grow and making sure we actually have sustainable solid waste solutions, not just unending landfills, I want to turn it over to Darren Gore, who's the city manager for the city of Murfreesboro, to really share a little bit about, from the perspective of someone who's having to deal with this and many other issues as a city manager day in, day out. Share a little bit about your thoughts on this issue, and to you, why does the Jackson Law matter? Why has it mattered in Murfreesboro, and why does it matter now?
Great. Thank you for that introduction. want to give a real brief history and then maybe go into where I think Jackson Law is still so important for us today. Back in April of 2018, we started getting major odor complaints from Middle Point landfill. I don't know if they had run out of soil for cover at that point, or you started using an alternative cover, but Republic started throwing the city under the bus. The smell is coming from the city sewer system. We proved that wrong. We went to TDEC to try to get help on odor, public nuisance odor issues, and TDEC basically said we don't deal with odor issues. So that was our first experience of just kind of like, hey, there's not really a regulatory agency here that's going to be helping us with public nuisance problems. Fast forward to June of 2021. Earlier that year, Republic expands to the north. They filed for an expansion, what they called an expansion. We were fighting the argument that, or making the argument that it was actually a new landfill, just happened to be adjacent to their existing landfill. And we objected to TDEC reviewing that expansion under the Jackson Law, the assertion of our passing the Jackson Law, that we should have been able to review that as a public municipality going through our planning process, and we would have to have approval authority. TDEC did not agree with us. They argued that it was an expansion and it didn't fall within the Jackson Law authority, which again, still disagree with that ruling. But August 2022, we as a city, we file a federal lawsuit for Clean Water Act violations, Clean Air Act violations, total inadequate and dilapidated systems due to negligence on the landfill, leachate breakouts occurring, gas, obviously the odors are indicative that they are not extracting gas properly. We multiple times sent 60-day notices to TDEC alleging these violations. TDEC never once even investigated these violations. So again, it just shows you that your regulatory agency is not necessarily going to cover your local issues. So July of this year, we annexed the landfill, and that was pretty strategic in order to have closer oversight on the landfill with building and codes and fire protection compliance, as well as stormwater runoff compliance issues. Then I go to a 2025, so I start hearing the rumblings of the Jackson Law may be taken away, and we hear there's a conference in Gatlinburg, the 2025 Sustainability Conference, where there's a session called New Siting Reform, or New Landfill Siting Reform for Tennessee. And I'll just be blunt, there was just overt implications that Tennessee was an exception, that no other state in the U.S. had as much local authority as Tennessee had, and they went into several instances showing surrounding states and how the state had more authority in determining where new landfills were to be constructed or where landfills could be expanded. And it just was very apparent to me that seemed to be where the state or TDEC or whomever, the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, some entity is trying to say, hey, we're in a crisis. And they're really gaslighting the fact that it's the NIMBY, it's the not in my backyard folks. It's the local jurisdiction has created this crisis, when in fact the crisis has been created by horrendous operators and apathetic regulators. Now, the NIMBY is we are an effect, right, of that cause. But the cause of the crisis is you got people that don't run landfills well, and you got a regulatory agency that doesn't regulate landfills well. So you do have to, the only people that are going to protect your local jurisdictions from these folks is your city councils, your county commissions. And if you take away the Jackson Law, they basically now have no ability to do that. And I think it's scary to think that we may be going there, but we're definitely being painted as a state that we've been given too much local authority, and we need to bring more centralized authority back to the state. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thanks so much for that. And I want to lift up again what you just highlighted, that notion that I think the response sometimes is like, well, we've got to have landfills somewhere. It's just everybody's just going to be saying, not in my backyard. When, to your point, the reality is residents want sustainable waste solutions. It's not that we can imagine the issues of needing our solid waste to go somewhere. We can't imagine that away, but folks are wanting landfill operators that are actually operating and regulated and aren't committing violations and are actually doing the job right.
Correct. I think if we'd seen them do the job right, it wouldn't be near the lawsuits that have gone on. I mean, Murfreesboro has basically been the solo. I mean, we've spent seven figures, y'all. I mean, lots and lots of money to make these fights to prevent that expansion from going on, because our quality of life, we hear. I mean, our city council hears the problems with it really is a quality of life issue for the folks on the north side of Murfreesboro, and it's heartbreaking that you can't go outside and enjoy your backyard because of the odors and the problems and of course you've got other nuisances with trash, debris, traffic, the whole gamut, especially when you are bringing in 30 other counties worth of trash. So I think it's galvanized our city council, and I think it's galvanized our community to say, hey, enough's enough here. We've been the dump for long enough, and obviously landfills are still needed, but if they got to be done right. They've got to be done right.
Thank you so much. Well, so thanks for the panel for sharing. And so now that we have that overview, wanted to open it up for some questions. And so please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I do want to lift up one that I saw come in early from Kiki, which was a question about what are the tools available to unincorporated communities who may be facing this issue, or are there tools available? Does the Jackson Law apply to unincorporated communities? And I don't know if anyone has an answer to that. Anyone want to take that?
If you're in that county, then you need to get with your county commissioner in the unincorporated area, make sure that he or she is aware of it and educate them on the situation, and let that commissioner take it to the county commission and go on from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So working with our county commissioners, and we'll talk about next steps here in just a little bit. Those county commissioners and city council members are critical. Any other questions coming up for folks? What I see, I have one from, we did have a question submission when folks registered, and I'm not sure if Denise O'Brien is on or not, but a question that came through was, how are programs such as Compact Nashville and recycling being utilized to reduce the need for the expansion of landfills? And are there existing alternatives to the need for landfill expansion? And is there a way to implement those to slow down the need for expanded landfills?
I can talk to that. We made a film about it. It's called the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act, and it's a piece of state legislation that would basically create a funding mechanism that's paid for by the companies that send the packaging to us that then ultimately ends up in the landfill. If you look across Europe and across the world, about a third of the world is under what's called EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, which requires those big brands, Unilevers, Mars, all the big companies that are sending that packaging to us. It requires them to have a stake in the game, and they pay a fee based on what they send to us. And that fee is then collected and then distributed to counties and municipalities to create a robust statewide recycling system. And so that's, there's one funding mechanism. And what you won't hear the folks who are proposing to dig a deeper hole, I mean, that's total outhouse technology. We need a way to divert things from that into a system that creates a market. And what we know, and what we've learned in our work, is that the aluminum industry, which is facing massive tariffs, needs the $1 billion worth of aluminum that we're landfilling each year in the United States. We have tile companies that locate to Tennessee because of the ball clay that we find over in Weakley County and West Tennessee, and they use it to make tiles, but they could replace all of that sand with the glass bottles that are currently going into the landfills. And so we know there's a market for it. There's a massive automotive industry that has a lot of glass that needs to be recycled, and there's markets for it. And so, and the plastics, the largest plastics recycler is just down the road in Troy, Alabama, and they want to buy plastic that we're currently sending to these communities, like all of these folks we've met, when there's a market for it somewhere else, and they'll actually pay us for it. That would be my answer.
Thanks so much, Shelby. Anyone else want to add to that? Oh, Mac, you're on mute.
We have to change the culture in Tennessee. We are a very wasteful state. And today it is much easier for anybody to put everything in one trash bag, go to a convenience center, throw it in a trash container, and go home. We've got to change that culture so they actually start separating and recycling. And it's not going to be easy, but most situations, as long as you can get the residents to understand it, you can get them to cooperate with it. So a lot of residents do not believe that we're actually recycling. We're collecting it, but they think it's being dumped in the landfill. That's not true in most instances. And then, there's, commodity markets aren't very good. There's a lot of different things that are hurting recycle, but somebody has to take a stand. Somebody's got to stand up and say, enough is enough. I did that in Williamson County in August. We no longer accept cardboard in trash. And you would not believe how many residents was upset. I just want to throw it away. You can't in the cardboard container. Well, I don't want to put it in the cardboard container. We'll take it back home with you then. You got to take a stand.
Absolutely. See in the comments, it says, yes, we have Tennessee businesses begging us for the materials as well. Any other questions coming in? Or Candida, yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, there are other states that are recycling, that it's mandatory, and composting, that it is mandatory, but it doesn't get there until there is a fire or an explosion in your backyard. And we already have a fire in our backyard, and we don't want to get to that point. So this is why we're here today, is let's do it before it's too late.
Thanks, Candida. Well, I had one. I got a couple more in the chat. I had a question too, thinking about both the issues of expansion, but then also the violations from some of the operators. I don't know if Mac or Darren or others on the call, some of the residents, would want to speak to more concretely what are some of the specific violations that kind of we see on a fairly regular basis that we're trying to address.
Well, I can speak for us, and it's primarily the leachate breakouts. I mean, you've got leachate that comes out, goes through their detention ponds, or doesn't get to their stormwater detention ponds and goes directly into the East Fork Stones River, and so that is a violation. I mean, there no leachate is allowed to get into your water sources. So they get cited occasionally by TDEC for having breakouts, but our lawsuit is predicated on, or it's founded on the fact that this stuff is getting into the water, and the PFAS levels kind of, they show that, or they are proof or evidence of that. And again, when you can't get TDEC to even go in and investigate that, what do? Well, you have to file a federal lawsuit and spend lots of money. Air pollution, similar. Don't believe that they are combusting all of their gases adequately. The combustibility is just not. They're not destroying the gases adequately through their flare system, and they're not collecting it adequately. You can go out to and see their condensate wells. They've got condensate pumps in their gas extraction wells, and they're flooded. And you can't, when you're not pumping the condensate out of the gas extraction wells, you're not extracting gas. And the gas goes through the surface of the landfill, and you get the odors, and you get, especially when you're not covering the trash daily properly. And if you look around the landfill, this is the other thing that the area around the Middle Point landfill, it looks like, it's a moonscape. I mean, every bit of soil and clay and material has been taken or extracted from the surrounding area around that landfill to provide cover for it. And now the money, the expense of having to bring in dirt to properly cover is too expensive. So they go to these alternative covers, which are just not adequate. They don't do as good a job as soil. But you're basically you're ravaging the properties around these landfills. So if you have a 200-acre landfill that's 150 foot tall, you go look and see how much area around it has been just absolutely ravaged to use the soil on it to try to manage it. It's just not a good. It's not a good. And you're right next to the river. It's just not a good situation.
Thanks for that, Darren.
And one thing Darren mentioned, leachate, and let me explain what leachate is. You go to your kitchen trash can, you start throwing trash in on Monday, and by Sunday, your trash can is full. You did not add any liquid to it, but there's liquid in it. That's your trash decomposing. Imagine all that trash going into one landfill. That's your leachate, along with any stormwater that comes in contact with that trash. All of that must be, by state law, treated before it can be released in any stream.
Thanks for that explanation. And I know the term PFAS has been thrown out a couple times. Could someone explain briefly what that is?
You want to take that back, or Shelby? Well, I don't.
Well,
I'll
start.
Something. It's a term that's hard to. It's a truncated, right? It's an acronym for a very long.
Austin, you want to let me take
term.
that one? This is
Say
Dan.
again?
Oh, we've got Dan coming in. Yeah, sure. Dan, you want to jump in on?
PFAS are a class of very durable chemicals that are used in many products that we use, but they oftentimes tend to bioaccumulate. So they accumulate in our bodies. Many of them are toxic. They cause things like cancers and reproductive issues and other issues. And when they go into a landfill and that landfill breaks down, those PFAS are released, and they're released into the water, and that water is the leachate. Yeah. And then once it is in the leachate, that leachate's got to be treated, and it typically goes to a wastewater treatment plant. And those chemicals, since they don't break down, the wastewater treatment plants can't treat them. They don't extract them. They end up in the effluent or the discharge water and the biosolids, the sludge that is produced by the wastewater treatment plant. Oftentimes those sludges are then applied to our farmlands in order to get rid of them. And then the PFAS that's in the biosolids or the sludge, again, gets washed down into the waters. So ultimately it ends up in the waters, and it then goes into our drinking waters. And right now, the EPA, although they're trying to delay it, has established drinking water standards for two PFAS, PFOA and PFOS, at 4 parts per trillion. 4 parts per trillion is an extremely small amount. And so because those chemicals are getting into the water, into our surface waters and getting into our drinking waters, we are all subject to some levels of them. And the only way to really get rid of them is to stop using them and to keep them out of the surface waters.
Yeah, they're polyfluoroalkyl substances. Okay, that's
right. They have very strong carbon fluorine bonds in a chain,
And
those provide things like water resistance and oil resistance, and they're used as surfactants and soaps and different things like that.
It's something we don't want in our water supply.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're often referred to as forever chemicals, so that because they're so hard to break down, and they are on, stain resistant, water resistant, non-stick cookware, firefighting foams, all those things. And yeah, and they do bioaccumulate, which is what everyone's concerned about, and the fact that 4 parts per trillion, it's extremely hard to treat substances to that low of a concentration, especially through a conventional wastewater treatment plant. You're going to have to get into advanced treatment techniques to get concentrations down that low. The only way you really can get that low is to, stop using them, stop manufacturing them.
Yeah. No, thanks for that explanation. And we've got one more question that's maybe a little bit of a technical question, and then I want to make sure we get to, all right, what can we do now? So we're going to have a next steps in a moment, but I did see it says our landfill is requested to double the output of their leachate evaporator. Could anyone speak to the hazards and or send us resources for questions we should send to TDEC? That may be a fairly technical question, but if someone does have an answer for that, we'll lift it up.
Evaporation is one way of disposing of leachate instead of sending it to a treatment plant. But when you evaporate it, you still have all the constituents in what's left over. So you've got to collect it and bring it back in and add it back to the leachate again. So you're reprocessing and you're getting those constituents stronger and stronger.
If it's evaporated, what they should be doing is then taking those residuals and treating them as hazardous waste. They should, ideally, they should not go back into the landfill. They should be treated as hazardous waste.
Great.
Now, I can't say that that's what they're doing, but that's what should happen. And the good thing about evaporation is that it shouldn't go to the wastewater treatment plant.
Yep. Excellent. When I see Dan, you put your contact information if folks have more questions about that as well. So I just thanks again to the panel, and we're gonna, after we do our call to action, we'll give one last chance for final comments. But now we have the question: what do we actually do? So we know, again, just to restate it, there are counties, quite a few counties that have passed the Jackson Law. So state law, they've adopted it. Local county commissions, city councils can have some say in landfill decision making. There's a lot of counties that, for whatever reason, haven't actually adopted it. We also know in 2026, as has been stated, there is a high likelihood that there's going to be an effort to repeal the Jackson Law, even for those who already have it. So stripping away the very little local control that folks already have. So there's two issues. The one, trying to pass Jackson Law in counties that don't have it, and making sure it's preserved and protected in the 2026 legislative session. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, and this is a link tree that has several different things that we'll talk through in a second of ways that we can take action together. I know someone had mentioned up earlier in the chat of like, well, wouldn't it be something if all the different folks that were working on this issue in their own communities are working together? Yes, that is exactly why we have brought this call together. That's exactly what the local campaign is about. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And so if you go to that link tree there, whoops, I'm sharing the map there. I need to share the toolkit. Hold on, let me get my tech working here. Let's see. There we go. So there is a link to an advocacy toolkit, and that's what I'm going to be walking through right now. And so this is there's many things that you can do. This is a set of actions that we can take in a coordinated way together to address those things that we just mentioned. And so this toolkit walks through step by step what you can do right now, tomorrow, in your community. So the first is to determine whether your county or city already has adopted the Jackson Law. So we have a link where you can actually check that. and you can see whether your county's adopted the Jackson Law already or not. Step 2 is prepare your ask. So if your county has not adopted the Jackson Law, there's actually a template online for a bill that you can work with your county commission or city councilor to just plug in some information, and you can get them to present it at the city council meeting or the county commission meeting to actually say, yes, we want the Jackson Law in our county or our municipality. There's a super easy template that you can share with your council and commission to adopt the Jackson Law. And it can happen as quick as, I think if it gets on the agenda, could potentially pass the next meeting. So potentially 2 months, you could get it adopted if there's the political will for it. But then second, if your county has already adopted the Jackson Law, that is fantastic news. That's wonderful. And there's still something you need to be doing. So what we have done in other campaigns is focus on getting our city councils or county commissions to pass resolutions. So what resolutions are is it's a non-binding statement. It's just a formal statement from your county commission or city council to say, we support keeping the Jackson Law. And that resolution can be sent to our state representatives. And so it's a great way to have a formal statement from your county or municipality in support of the Jackson Law. Shelby has helped put together a great template resolution for that, which is also linked. You can pull that up. It's plug and play. If your city council or county commission wants to change the language a little bit, if you want to, obviously plug your city or county in, it's something you can bring to your commissioner or city council member, make it really easy for them to get a resolution on the agenda. Okay, so now that you've determined which of those two you need to do, step 3 is getting local support. So the first thing, we have a statewide petition that's active. It's also in the link tree, but it's also linked in the toolkit. Share this widely. Share it in your community. Share it. We'll be releasing some other ways to easily share this petition. And it's an easy way to just get public support. And then what we can do is if you let us know, we can give you a list of the folks in your county or your city that have signed the petition. So you can actually have a local team in your community to be working with when it's time to go to the city council or county commission and turn out to support the resolution or the bill getting passed. And then the second option, if you are interested, we can get you a unique email action link for your county or for your city that makes it very, very easy for people in your community to send an email directly to their city council or county commissioners saying that they support this legislation. And so just let us know. FEDA's email is included in there. If you want an email action link, we can support in that. And step 4. So you've gotten community support. Now you actually need to get it on your commission or city council agenda. And I'm not going to go through all these steps. And this is maybe more information than you need, but we want to give more rather than less. These are some just different things to think about when you're going to meet with your city council member or county commissioner, things to think about ahead of time to make sure when you're proposing this, that meeting goes well. So you can walk through that. If you need some extra talking points, there's a link in there for that as well. And then finally, if you need any support at all, this group, not just those of us that are on the panels talking right now, but all these other people, these 50+ people that have joined the call, we're here for each other. And so we want to be able to support each other. And for the folks that have joined this call, we want to connect you to other people in your county or city that are working on this, so we can actually protect the Jackson Law and pass the Jackson Law in our local municipalities and counties. So that's the toolkit. The 2 other actions that are in that link tree that I put in there, the petition, right now, today, you can start sharing that. Share that with friends. Share that even if they're in a different county than you. That's something that's anyone in our state can and should sign that petition. So share the petition. That also helps us build a list of people in our counties and cities that we can connect to, that we can build with. And then the other thing that's linked in there, if you are with an organization whether that's a local neighborhood association or a statewide organization. If you're part of an NAACP chapter and you think your organization would want to sign on in support of this campaign, there is an organizational sign-on form as well. Really easy to use, just some information to fill out, and that will allow us to put different organization names behind this effort as well. So with that, any questions on the action? Are folks clear on what the next steps are? All right. And we are tentatively planning to sort of do a regroup meeting in November. We want folks taking action tomorrow. Let's get this on the agenda, and if possible, and if you have a commission or city council meeting in October, that's great. But ideally in November or December, we want these resolutions or these adoption proposals to be on the agenda in November or December. We also plan to have another meeting like this in November to sort of check in with each other, and it'll be a more interactive opportunity for you to share how it's going and help strategize with each other. And so be on the lookout for that. But any other questions on the next steps? For thoughts,
Yeah.
Shelby? Oh, yep.
Go ahead.
Good grief.
Oh, Shelby, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say before we get off, you know, the name of this campaign is local. Let our communities act locally, and we've all heard it. All politics are local, and what I hope folks on this call and as folks go back to their communities, they realize that these local decisions, you know, when you're going to your local county commissions and city councils, those are local elected officials whose authority is being threatened by state preemption. So it's really important that folks really recognize and understand the importance of this is a local campaign, and it was named that for a reason, because it's going to be the local communities that, one, are either going to protect themselves, or they're going to be the ones that end up with some things that they might not want in their backyard.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Shelby. All right. Any final thoughts from our panelists? Oh, Gail?
Great work. You've given them some really good tools. We're so fortunate in Murray County and Columbia to have passed them, but we will work on a resolution also to follow up on that.
Excellent. Candida?
Yeah, just to say the Jackson Law has protected us in the past. We were able to keep it from being expanded, as Mr. Gore said, in the past, but now it is up on the chopping block. If that Jackson Law goes away, they will want to expand it into the old landfill and to other properties around there that have been ravaged. And then we will be the largest super dump on this side of the East Coast. So that is not something that Rutherford County wants, and that's not something that any Tennessean wants. So I hope that we can all work together to work for a better future for all of our communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Candida. All right. Well, we are right at the hour. We will send this information and the recording out, if not tomorrow, the day after. And we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.